Oregon's spring game looked great, but I am not changing my stance.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time. Once again, for Locked On Ducks, I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks' top spring standouts. Dante Moore in the quarterback room. That is all in today's show with my guy, Erik Skopl, 24/7 Sports and the Autzen Audibles podcast, who was there at the spring game in person. I wish I could have been, but I watched it extensively. I watched every play like 4 times because I was so excited to see football back. I just wanted to grade every single person that I can. But Skopl, all spring, I've been in the camp of I expect Oregon to be a playoff team. I expect them to be good. I do not have the same national championship aspirations as last year. I loved what I saw in the spring game. I saw a lot of competitive depth. I saw a lot of balance. I saw playmaking both ways. I liked a lot of things. It did not sway me into, this team is, making that national championship run this year, just because so much of that production, that talent is still so new. 43% returning production from a year ago. That's 105th in the country. So I'm still in that camp. It makes me more excited about 2026. That's where I come at it. How about you?
I think that's fair. We need more data points. Like I keep saying it. Like I need to see more. I need to know more, especially at quarterback, which and we'll talk about that. It sounds like at the end, but I came away thinking like there's a lot of guys who can win you football games. Have I seen enough to know like you have the guy who has that it factor to like win a national championship? No, I mean like not at all. And that's not even a slight on any of those guys. I just think that's being fair to those guys. So it would be strange here 4 days after the spring game to be like, in 20 pass attempts I saw of Dante Moore in a spring game and whatever I've seen previously, I think he's the best quarterback in the country. Oregon's going to win the whole dang thing. That would feel over the top. And I go there sometimes, but hopefully not all that often. So no, I think that's fair. This is how I kind of looked at it. I said to myself, again, I hadn't seen anything going into the spring game. You and me both. And every single fan who watched the game in person, who watched the game on TV, we're all in the same boat entering this thing, new, clear eyes, haven't seen anything. And I came away feeling like the floor for this team is maybe higher than I had thought, just because there's so much talent across the board. Like I look at it this way. I think there's second teamers on this team that would, constitute the starting lineup for 5 or 6 Big Ten opponents they're going to play this season. Like the floor to me is like they win 9-10 games. Like genuinely looking at this way the schedule plays out, and you can tell me that's crazy, but outside of Penn State, outside of Iowa on the road, outside of, is USC going to be good? I'm not convinced yet, but like they think they are. I just like look at the schedule and I still think like, this team is more talented than just about anybody they have on the schedule. Like I feel like that affirmed what my expectation was going in on that regard. But big picture, like what can they do against the very best in the country? I still need to see more, especially at quarterback.
Can USC be good? That depends on how you define good. Can they give Oregon trouble? Sure, why not? I suppose that's a passing-oriented team against a secondary that's going to be replacing its top 6 guys from a year ago, whatever you thought about him at the end of the year. But I think that I don't know that I could say the floor is 10 wins. Like even with this schedule, the way that I look at it, Erik, is if you give this team last year's schedule, that win total is 9.5, not 10.5, and it could even be down at 8.5. You have to go at Michigan. You have to play Ohio State. I mean, this Oregon team is not beating last year's Ohio State team. I don't think I'm breaking any news there. And I don't know that this team with a relatively inexperienced quarterback compared to Dylan Gabriel goes on the road and wins that Wisconsin game. And so the win total being the same, according to our friends at FanDuel, I think is reflective of just how favorable this schedule is. They get so many breaks. The road schedule, you've got Washington, you've got Iowa. Those are your toughest road games. by far. Your other road games are
Penn State.
Northwestern. Outside.
Let's include that one in there.
Yeah, sorry. Outside of the Penn State, I've just kind of like written that game off. I'm going to talk about that more on Monday here on the show.
I think you're perfectly fine to write that one off at this point.
That'll be Monday's show. Sneak peek for my everydayers out there. Like, I do not expect Oregon to win that Penn State game. So I think elsewhere, USC being at home, Indiana being at home, Oregon State being at home makes those games a lot less worrisome. And I think by the end of the year, maybe you could see a significantly, better team that feels like it has a higher floor. I can't see them firing on all cylinders right away when you're working in new quarterback, new running back, 2 new receivers, new tight end, 4 new offensive linemen, and 10 guys from the defense.
I just to play devil's advocate, I think that's fair. I also think like they're probably going to win every game until Penn State, bye week on the other side to get right, and then it's 3 games against teams I think they should beat. Probably there's some. We'll see how the road travel factors in, and then another bye week, and then the back end is where I think it gets a little bit nasty potentially. But I still think like 10 wins is very attainable. Do you not agree?
Oh no, I agree. I agree it's attainable. I mean, I have some people that are more optimistic than myself that listen to or watch the show who think it's 11-1, or I saw Kenzano writing over at his website that he feels like 11-1 is just like a lock and it's in the cards. They'll lose to Penn State, beat everybody else. And I just, with the relative lack of experience, the talent that was on display on Saturday is so clear. It's so obvious, like at a lot of different position groups. And we'll get into that more later. I just think you can't overlook how experienced last year's team was at quarterback, at defensive line, at receiver, in the secondary. Like, for the shortcomings they had in the playoff, it would have been worse if you'd had younger guys out there.
Yeah, I mean, I won't disagree with that, which is why I kind of am in line with you on your initial, like, winning a national championship. That still feels kind of outrageous for this group. Now, I will say, like, if you think about the growth you see from young players over the course of a season, it's possible that we feel like, oh, this team is a step behind where we've been under Dan the last couple of years. But by the end of the season, there's enough growth. Because you think about, like, you're going to be relying on a ton of true freshmen, redshirt freshmen, sophomores. It's possible you feel like they're ascending, and maybe that back 5 games I referenced earlier, they just go they just go out and wreck a bunch of teams. They go out and wreck Washington. They go out and wreck USC. They go out and wreck. Is Iowa in that back quarter? I think they are as well.
I think they're kind of in the middle.
Are they in the middle? I have to look. I need to look at the schedule again here.
Are we overlooking Rutgers though, Eric?
I don't think so. But my point is, like, couldn't you see, Spencer? Like, hey, maybe they lose to Penn State. Maybe they drop a second game in the middle there. Or maybe it's Iowa if it is in the middle. But then at the end of the season, they're ascending, and we see a team that, if they get in the playoff, is like, I'm not saying going to win the championship, but that we're feeling like, hey, this is like, they're kind of sneaky scary, and they make win a couple games where they get into the semis or whatever, and that parlays into the next season. That kind of feels to me like, I don't want to say best case, but that feels to me like a plausible outcome of, hey, everything starts to click. Maybe there's, like you said, some early growing pains, but man, by the end of the season, you're going, they're kind of like the sneaky dark horse team going into this playoff thing, because we've seen the talent come together. Whoever the quarterback is, I'll just say Dante Moore now, just to be the filler. Gosh, Dante really has figured it out. These skill guys around him are coming together. The secondary, which was so young early on the season and maybe had some issues in early games, God, they're clicking because there's a bunch of NFL guys there. Pass rush is coming together like it could, and everybody's kind of going, Oregon, yeah, maybe they're the team again.
I can see that. I can see that. I think that's best case scenario, that all comes together, because there is so much change. But eventually, if you keep everybody healthy, and I think Oregon mostly did a year ago, knock on wood that happens again, of course, knock on one of those wood planks behind you. Yeah, like if they avoid that, and obviously they still had some injuries, but they had the depth last year to overcome that. I think they do again this year at just about every position group, which is one of the reasons I like this team so much. Like, if a receiver goes down, I'm not saying I'd be happy about it. I just wouldn't be that worried about it necessarily. Kind of like last year, when Tez Johnson got hurt. Yeah, okay, I'd like to have Tez Johnson back, but in the meantime, kind of looks like there are a lot of good receiving targets out there. I feel that way about the receiver room, defensive line, secondary, linebacker is an interesting one that we will get to later. But when we come back, Eric is going to give me his top spring standouts, and I'm not going to be able to steal any from him. Not this time, anyway. First, this episode brought to you by Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need. Delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trademaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trademaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. All right, Eric, floor is yours. Top spring standouts for you. I had my three, but I will reserve revealing them here in case there's a crossover. Because last time I asked you to do this, I kind of stole your guy.
You did, but we hadn't established it or anything. What are the parameters? Am I just given full reign? Like anybody, I can pick anybody.
Yeah. Let's go full reign. Any position group, any reason. Like you watched that spring game and you came away saying, "Wow, this is a guy, or this guy's playing more than I thought."
Blake Purchase.
Good pick.
Can I just compare him and Elijah Rushing together to save us some time? Just because both of those guys popped all day.
Go for it.
Yeah, I came away. I did my big rewatch, and then I wrote a bunch of words. If you want to go read them, I wrote 4,000 on this spring game over on the website, which was way more than I'd anticipated. But I ended up getting into it.
You wrote 4,000 words?
Yeah, I ended up writing a capsule on about a 50-word, 100-word capsule on basically every player who played. So if you want to go check that out, you can. But I came away watching that going like the official stats, which weren't actually released. This is a little behind the scenes here because they didn't have the official stat crew and the backup stat guys didn't know the difference between the offense and defensive players. Okay. So,
I thought I was going insane. I was trying to find a box score the other day in a prep for a show. And I was going crazy, like, why is there no box score? Look, I got the 2024 box score right here.
Here's the box score, friend, and you can maybe see it. All the names, they got all the names wrong because the new stat keepers thought they were all the offensive guys or defensive guys, so they didn't post the defensive stats. But I have one right here. I was one of two people given one after the game. So I probably shouldn't have put those guys on blast, but it was comical. Anyway, my point was they only gave credit for Rushing and Purchase, I think, for 2 sacks. I thought they had 4 sacks and 8 hurries combined. Like these guys off the edge are your second teamers after Tatum and obviously Mateo. And I think Mateo, based on how he played, maybe hand down a little bit more. Maybe we can incorporate these guys all in the field together a little bit. But boy, the speed rush was for real, man. And like the tackles at times, even like Alex Harkey, who I thought overall had like a pretty solid day, at times it was like he's barely out of his stance and boom, you're at the quarterback. So those two guys looked for real. The acceleration, the explosiveness, the length, like Rushing, it impacted a lot of passes just leaping in the air, including the Dante Moore pass to Kyler Casper that Casper couldn't complete the catch, but I thought made a great effort on. Like there was a lot to like from those two young guys off the edge there. And it's part of the reason I have enthusiasm about this pass rush. I mean, I think everybody does coming out where they had officially 11 sacks. This is spring game. There's all sorts of reasons we can kind of like diminish that fact, but just like
Dan Lanning has his thoughts on the defensive line beating the O-line.
I don't think James Crepea shares them.
No, he does not.
But my point is, like, these guys look legit, and I think this is translatable. Some of it was against lesser offensive linemen. We can acknowledge that, but there was enough to like there where I'm like Purchase, Rushing, those are the next guys, and potentially like the next star guys post Mateo, who I don't know if you saw those NFL early mock drafts. Like, it looks like a guy who's going pretty early next year.
Yeah, I mean that's been my expectation since he started bursting on the scene this year. I have long dreamed at this point and will continue dreaming that Oregon can muster up a fat NIL package to try and convince him to stay, a la JT Tuimoloau and or Jack Sawyer at Ohio State last season. Now, those guys are not going to be as highly drafted. You know, they were mid-round picks. Mateo is not going to fall outside the top 15, if even he falls outside the top 10,
right?
Because of the position he plays. Now, those guys are edge players too, but That's kind of been my thought, but I do get the sense it'll be a Connerly Harmon situation where I'm sure, and I'm just speculating here, I'm sure Oregon went to him and said, we'll give you, I don't know, $1 million, $1.5 million to come back next year. But they said, we're going to be first round picks. Like that's a really carrot in the stick. That's a really appealing carrot over there. I suppose that has a more negative connotation. Like, that's two carrots. One is bigger than the other. Like,
vitamin E. We got to have as many carrots.
Yeah. Gotta have as many as we can. I wanted to throw one at you, and it's again on the defensive line, which I thought going into the spring game I gave as my highest position group grade. I feel that way coming out of the spring game as well. Jericho Johnson looked awesome. I mean, Oregon is replacing a lot of production with Jamari Caldwell and Derek Harmon on the interior of that defensive line. They were replacing a lot of interior production last year, and it took a step forward. I don't know that you can be better than those two, a first and third round pick. I do know that I am chair of the Amari Washington fan club. I thought Bear Alexander looked pretty solid, and Jericho Johnson was everywhere. And a guy who had weight problems or questions, at least coming out of high school, didn't look like he had any on Saturday.
No, yeah, that's the big part is he looks different. And this is where I do get annoyed that we couldn't watch a little practice because just to see the body transformations, like I would imagine, and we'll get weights eventually. I know Jericho weighed in at I think it was one of the All-American Bowls last year at 372. Like which is just not a tenable weight to play that position with. I'm going to guess he's in the 340 range now. I think he's lost a significant amount of weight. And I think, Tony, the defensive line coach, brought up they have three guys that are like 340 plus with Jericho, with Tion Gray, and with Terrence Green.
Yeah. And
his point was we could ask him to lose weight, but they're still pretty freaking good at this weight. So let's just keep them there. And so so entering the spring game, kind of similar to you, the idea of hey, they've got Amari, they've got Bear, who are going to be the veterans in the middle, who are expect to play a lot. And then they've got these three 340 pound guys, we don't know much about. It was kind of oh, that's intriguing. Which one's going to pop? And I'm totally with you. I think Jericho was clearly the standout of those group. The other guys looked fine. I'm not dismissing them at all. I think those are important depth pieces. I think ultimately though, it feels like maybe Jericho is on the field a little bit more on early rush downs. Bears talked about it. He's not a great run defender. He came to Oregon in part to try to get better there. Is it possible Jericho actually outsnaps Bear early on or at parts in the season on rundowns just because he's built to do that? And Bear's more of your third down, pass down guy. I don't know, but you could certainly see the vision for Jericho being a big part of this defensive line. And then of course, because he's just a redshirt freshman, being a big time part of the future defensive lines. And just collectively, there's so many guys here. And I guess I'll call this a pseudo standout as well. But Matthew Johnson, the true freshman, he was awesome too. He and Blake paired up a couple of times on one drive, and I felt real bad. It was the Achilles Smith drive where it was just Achilles giving it his all. He's doing everything he can. His offensive line just can't block these guys. And they just moved him from the right side. Hey, we got a sack together. Hey, move him to the left side. Hey, we got a sack together. Move him to the right side again. Hey, we impacted this play. Now we're punting. It was just those two teaming up was really impressive. So I don't know if I want to make that a full standout, Spencer. We want to be, to get, that honor, we have to have a pretty high bar to reach. So we're not going to give it to Matthew necessarily, but he was a pseudo standout and had a great Saturday as well. I wanted to just toss his name out there.
Yeah, I liked what I saw from the D-line just so much. I literally think, what are they, 9 deep with guys that I feel good about? It was insane. And yeah, the offensive line is going to have a tougher time in a spring game than the defensive line because you're putting together a unit that has probably never taken a snap together. Right, you're mixing and matching first team, second team guys.
And at the very least, Spencer, if they have taken snaps in spring, whatever, this is a group that's never taken a snap in any game of any import in their entire careers. This isn't mimicking anything for a Saturday in the fall, to say the least.
Yeah, something it just popped in my head that I didn't monitor. Who was the second center? Obviously, Poncho was one.
Charlie was the other.
Charlie Pickard was the other. Okay, so yeah, that certainly contributes to what we're talking about. But I mean, I remember saying the same thing last year, and then I watched Oregon's defensive line all season, and they were freaking awesome the entire year. So I feel really good about that unit. What about an offensive standout, Eric? Who stood out the most to you?
I mean, we have to do the Dylan Gresham thing, I think. I mean, it's really hard not to acknowledge the plays he made, because this was like a complete wild card out of left field guy. I mean, he was somebody who I'd liked as a recruit, but I can't tell you how many times I like a skill guy as a recruit. They come to Oregon and then it just doesn't happen. And then it's like, hey, I like this guy. Now he's at Sac State or something. You know, I mean, it's
the one that pops into my mind like that is Ashton Cozart.
Sure.
Ashton Cozart and Dylan Gresham, you could have told me were going to have the same career trajectory. I would have believed you, but then Gresham on Saturday, to your point, was really, really good.
Yeah, 3 catches and all of them were meaningful. First one extended a drive on the first like Fighting Ducks drive. Is that what we call them? Yeah, Fighting Ducks, the white team. The second one was the maybe the best catch of the day, the diving full extension. He has Theron Johnson all over him. Luke Moga, who I'm sure we'll talk about, delivers a great ball. Like, I mean, we'll touch on that later because I have a lot of thoughts on Luke. I thought he was awesome, but that was a great catch. And then the walk-off touchdown, essentially. I mean, it wasn't a walk-off because I guess the other team got the ball, but I mean, what ended up being the deciding touchdown there, where it's just a simple slant and run. I don't know. Peyton Woodyard, I've rewatched the play a couple times. I don't know what he was doing.
No idea what he was doing.
He was just running the wrong direction. He
had a rough day.
He had a rough time. But either way, Dylan Gresham still makes those plays. Looked good as a kick returner. Also had, it doesn't count in the stat sheet, had a target that actually right before the long touchdown where he drew a PI on Dorian Brew. I don't know if people noticed this. He caught the ball out of bounds. Like, it was like a ridiculously hard catch. Like, this guy showed the contested catch ability. He showed the ability in the open field. Can't really speak a ton to the route running because I don't know if any of it was like that precise or specific, but looks the part. And for a group that, has a ton of opportunity, like I did not have him in my 2 deep going into this weekend. I'm going to go through that exercise, I think, tomorrow, Thursday. I think I'll have him in there somewhere. I think he feels like one of the top 6 guys, and certainly coming out of the spring game was the receiver standout for me.
Yeah, I like Gresham. I talked about him earlier this week back on Wednesday's show. Wednesday. The Decorian Moore still looks the part to me. Like,
absolutely.
I think he drew a couple of double teams, but if you go back and watch the game closely, he torched the secondary a couple times, and the quarterbacks just didn't always have time to throw, or they weren't looking in his direction.
Luke missed him on one that.
Yeah, like Luke missed him. It was a walk-in touchdown. I mean, it was a straight up. He looks like the guy that Oregon recruited to me. I mean, once Novosad threw him that ball down the sideline and he brought it in with Theron Johnson just kind of draped in coverage. I saw it and thought, oh, okay, yeah, he's that guy. Like, we're so natty. We're going to talk about the quarterbacks because that's important to winning a national championship. I loved what I saw. Eric's thoughts coming your way next. All right, Eric, let's wrap with some quarterback talk. And I want to throw this question at you. I asked this to Max on yesterday's show, but I got this hot take, which, by the way, for all my audience out there, I love evaluating hot takes. Send them to me, Twitter, YouTube, however. Judson said, here's my hot take. Oregon could go 8-4 at worst, 10-2 at best, with Moga starting at quarterback. Yep, I said it. What do you make of that, Eric?
I think the more you see him play, there's a chance some of the warts come out. But what we saw on Saturday really, really impressed me. I had him as my QB standout in my column. That doesn't mean I think he's the best quarterback on this roster. I still think Dante is. I don't think he's better than Autzen, probably, ultimately, in terms of, I don't know, the passing parts are still concerning. I mean, this is a guy who's sub 50% out of high school in terms of completion percentage. This is a guy who really struggled last year in practice when I watched him. This the growth here, like, people want to rip on Will Stein for play calling and whatever. The development of Moga and the development of quarterbacks in general, like, a ton of credit to that guy. Just think about the growth we've seen. This is a guy who was like skipping target practice, like 20, 25-yard throws last year. He was skipping them in the dirt. He was missing it wide. He was throwing it over the target. I mean, he was all over the place. He was so dialed in this game. Like, I know he was 6 of 13, but I tracked the incompletions, and like 6 of them I don't blame him for. Like, 2 of them were drops. Malik Benson should have a 75-yard touchdown, and the stats should look significantly better.
On what was totally offensive pass interference, by the way.
True, fair. But like,
but also that flag rarely gets thrown in football nowadays. Like,
and that's about as easy of a catch as you're going to make, and he didn't make it. And then there were 4 throwaways that were perfectly fine decisions, like good decisions that you want from a young quarterback. Like let's not push the ball anywhere. We don't need it to be placed. Let's get it out of bounds. Let's go live to see another day. And then the last one was a kind of an iffy decision that was middle of the field that could have been maybe picked off, but it wasn't. I thought he was really accurate. Some of the completions were like, it wasn't, he's 6 completions, and it's not like it's the stereotypical what Oregon does offensively. Like, oh, it was just a bunch of underneath screen passes and dinks and dunks, blah, blah, blah. No, he was throwing the ball down the field to people. Like, he was fitting the ball into tight windows. Like, Cooper Perry also didn't hang on to what it was on the same play that he missed to Corian, but Cooper had what could have been a 25-yard completion that he wasn't able to finish the catch with. So, yeah, I came away feeling like 8-4. That feels reasonable. I don't know if 10-2 ceiling feels reasonable to me, but I think the other part is I think we'd be a lot more excited if the quarterback's allowed to run, because this guy's biggest skill set is he ran 10.49 in the 100 meters out of high school. We saw it last year a little bit. We even saw it. I know it was blown dead, but just the wheels when he, I think, was sacked by Mateo maybe, in that game, and then runs down the field, does a little hurdle move and all that. Like, this is a really high-end athlete. So, yeah, I think the good news if you're an Oregon fan is this won't be your guy. And I'm not saying that as any slight to him, but this is still very much a work in progress prospect. I think you've got to be really excited about what you saw here, but this probably won't translate to anything until 26 at the earliest, probably 27, because I don't think whoever wins this starting job is just a one and done here. I would be stunned if that's the outcome, to be totally honest with you. But I certainly came away feeling like, yeah, like if Luke Moga was called into action, like they're not losing to most teams on their schedule.
Yeah, I think there are a couple teams where it'd be tough, like going to Washington on the road, that environment, that game and the stakes, that'd be a tough thing to ask him to win. Is Washington great? No. Are they bad? Also no. I think they're probably a 7-8 win team this year. I think that going to Iowa and playing against that defense, boy, yeah. that would be tough. But to your point, Erik, he's so fast.
Yes.
If you were to go through and say who are the best athletes, speed, acceleration, agility, I think Luke Moga would be top 5 on the team. I think DeCorian would be in there. I think Devin Jackson would be in there. Maybe you have Naeem Offord too. Maybe
Kenyon Sadiq at 250. Sadiq would put up some crazy stats. There's a lot of fast guys on this team. Unfortunately, Rod Pleasant just took off, or we could talk about like the guy who's almost run sub 10.
Yeah. So. By the way, do you know where he transferred?
You go to UCLA?
He did go to UCLA. Yeah. He is just continuing the legend of Oregon defensive back transfers that go to UCLA. It started with Jalen Davies. It continued with Brian Addison. Cole Martin is there right now, and so is Roderick Pleasant. There's nothing UCLA loves more than finding Oregon transfers and keeping them on the West Coast. That is, Maliki Matavau went down there. Like, it's just been...
But it's a really good strategy, for being honest.
Oh, no, I don't think it's bad.
These guys out of high school, they go to Oregon, which is the better team, and hey, they don't work there. Let's just you can come hang out on the West Coast in LA. You're from LA. Isn't this a fun place to be? Come play.
Yeah. I don't think it's a bad move whatsoever. But Moga is the best athlete at quarterback for the Ducks since Marcus Mariota.
I hadn't gone through the exercise, but when you were running through it, when you were saying top 5 on the team, I wasn't sure if you were saying top 5 like quarterback athletes Oregon has had. So I was starting to do the exercise, and yeah, it's got to be Marcus.
He'd be up there too. I think you'd still put Marcus 1, but like his athleticism is on a similar footing. Bo Nix was a really good athlete, to be sure. That's why he was a 5-star quarterback coming out of high school, is the fact that he can move. I think Moga is faster and has a little bit more burst than Bo Nix, who can definitely run. Like I'd probably say, I think he's faster, straight line speed than even a healthy Dennis Dixon.
Mm-hmm. He's I think clearly he's
way faster than Masoli and Darren Thomas and Herbert. And again, I'm just talking speed, athleticism, agility, and whatnot. I think it's Mariota 1. I kind of think it's Luke Moga number 2.
It's possible It's possible if you lined up those guys as high school seniors and had them run 100 meters, Luke would run faster. He was running 10.49. I don't know if Marcus. I know Marcus is ridiculously fast. I'm not trying to take anything away. I don't know if he ran track. 10.49 is like, that's legit for anybody.
Yeah,
like, that's legit for anybody.
I don't think Marcus ran track, but his 40 time was 4.45.
Right. Which is why I'm saying it's comparable.
Yeah.
I mean, to put it in perspective, like Dylan Gresham looked really fast. Jared Mack and I were talking on our show the other day. He was an 11.35 100 guy. Like that's almost a full second slower than what Luke
Like
ran.
that,
And Dylan looked awfully fast there running away from everybody on that slant. So
I just remember my first impression really of Moga was last year at the spring game when a bunch of backups were in. I think it was Hassan Ritter that ran for a long touchdown. He
Bryson Cobbins.
Cobbins, yeah, that was it. He veered right. He cut back left, and the camera's following him going to the right as you're watching on TV to the end zone. And then all of a sudden, Luke Moga from like 20 yards behind the play just catches up to him to help him across the line. And I was like, whoa. He handed the ball off and stood there. How did he catch this guy?
Yeah.
He's like, what's the guy at the Braves game that does the
I know.
the freeze. It's the freeze.
Yeah,
he's the freeze where the guy's like, yeah, I got a big, and then the freeze comes run. Luke Moga is the freeze. That might be his new nickname here on the show. But I did want to get your thoughts on the other quarterbacks too, Eric.
Yeah.
It was one of my biggest overall takeaways from the spring game was they all looked good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like Dante Moore, I think is what we expected, which is why everyone's kind of like, he looked fine. Novosad, again, looked good. Like, he's taken another step forward. And then Achilles Smith, true freshman, are you kidding me? The pocket presence, the ability to move and make throws on the run, I was so impressed. And gosh, he's big. He's a Herbert type. That's what he looks like.
I've said that. I made that comparison since I saw him as a sophomore in high school, like 3 years ago after Oregon spring game. I made the Herbert comparison just physically of like, you're just around him and you're like, they list him at 6'5". I think he's taller than that. With the hair, obviously, he's like 6'10". I mean, if you see photos with the big afro running around. The physical tools have always been there. I'm in total agreement. And like, let's be honest, he was dealt the most difficult hand of anybody because the offensive line they put in front of him had no chance against the pass rush.
He was sacked like 3 times in 4 plays.
Yeah, he got absolutely. And the most impressive part was what you talked about was the pocket presence. Was that like that didn't deter him? Like you could tell he was frustrated because he's got to be waiting his entire life for this moment. Being in Autzen Stadium, the place he watched, didn't watch, but the place his dad played. He knows all. He probably watched all the highlights, knows all the stories of all the things that have happened there. He's obviously been to many games at Autzen before. And you could just tell he really wanted to take the ball down the field and put it in the end zone. And his offensive line just wasn't going to let him do it. It just wasn't. That was just the facts of it. It was the offensive line wasn't going to let him do it. But you're right. Like the ability to rise in the pocket, to climb, and to make decisions, to hit Plug a couple times for conversions, and also to take off and run. And that was another thing. Like he's not Luke Moga speed. Nobody else on this quarterback room is even close. But he's athletic. He can make plays with his feet. So. Yeah, you saw a lot there. I thought this one probably won't matter as much, but Brock Thomas, like the walk-on from Sheldon, that dude's got some serious like ability.
He can spin it.
If he was 6'3", and this has been the knock on him since he came out of high school, like he had FCS offers. I think he's still. I heard he was recruited pretty heavily this offseason by some FCS schools, going like, "Hey, if you want to transfer down, we'll give you a scholarship." Like. Does that surprise you? Absolutely not. If he was 6'3", this is a guy who's like starting.
He was the one. Kenyon
D1
Sadiq's
school.
biggest play of the day was a throw from. Wasn't it Brock Thomas?
It was a great ball from Brock. Yeah,
great ball.
40 yards down the field, 38-yard completion. Yeah, and it was no catch after. So yeah, about a 40-yard throw. So yeah, he looked good. And then yeah, I think just like broadly though, just taking a step back, I don't think anything really changed for me in the order or my expectations for what this battle looks like. I still think it's Dante. I still think it's Austin. I think I probably moved Luke a lot closer to Austin than I would have had him prior to it. But the rest of it's just kind of like, yeah. And then the other guys just are developmental players that we're not expecting to do much of anything this year. So, like, what did you think of Dante? I thought he had 2 of the best throws in the day. The throw to Casper that was dropped was an absolute, and that was a dart for given the context of like rushing's in his face, like barely gets it over to outstretched fingertips, basically just wings it out there.
Yeah, I mean that was the one. That was the one where Florence made a really good play, right, in the end zone, and that was a great thing to see Jalil Florence out there and make him play. And Kyler Casper did have a good day in the receiver room as well. Made a couple of really good catches. I thought Dante looked exactly how we wanted him to. Like the first play from scrimmage for his team,
Sadiq.
Yeah, on that corner route with the double post clearing concept, like it's the right read. You know, Flowers got sucked down. He saw it immediately. It's a money throw. I think if you want to just get excited again about the prospect of Dante Moore, go watch that play and then go watch the throw to Jurion Dickey. That's a stupidly accurate throw.
Yeah,
that was an NFL throw. There is a safety over the top. There's a DB trailing in coverage. and he puts it right on the money. Like, I agree. I still think Dante's the guy. I came away thinking, yeah, if Dante were to get hurt for a game, a la Darren Thomas in 2011, knock on wood, very good. If Novosad or Moga had to come in, then yeah. You almost knocked that down.
I knew it was happening. I could tell it was not well positioned. We'll get better.
Yeah, but I felt like if you have a Brian Bennett situation who came in and started 2 games in that 2011 season, that was a Pac-12 championship and a Rose Bowl win, kind of feels like Oregon would be able to do that as long as it's not against, Penn State or at Iowa, or we'll see how good Indiana and USC are.
Right. I'll say this. This is a real low bar to clear. There's not a Braxton Burmeister backup situation.
That is the lowest of bars.
You know what I mean? And I hate that Braxton. That's what Braxton's career at Oregon ends up being, because he seemed like a really nice kid. But you can tell me there are 3 guys that not named Dante Moore that could go out there and win you a football game against probably, I don't know, 50% of the schedule.
I'll wrap it like this. All of those guys, Autzen and Luke, and Dante as well. But like, if you're just talking about the guys we expect to be the backups, and frankly, Achille,
yeah,
they all looked more comfortable playing the position than Ty Thompson ever did.
Gosh, I wish I could argue that point at all.
Well, that's what they pay me the big bucks for, obviously. Erik Skopl.
I'm a big Ty guy. I'm sorry.
I know.
I'm a big Ty guy. It's just it just wasn't meant to be.
I know. I was glad. I was happy he got his chance to start at Tulane, and then once I watched the bowl game, I thought, so this is what the staff was looking at for the last 3 years, both staffs. And it's unfortunate, and certainly we wish him all the best, but yeah, not a college quarterback, which is, rankings are just that. They're rankings. It's potential, expectation, production's a whole other thing. I love where Oregon's quarterback room is at. So does Erik Skopl, 24/7 Sports, and the Autzen Audibles podcast. That's a great way to wrap up the week. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time, and until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.